everyone, today I'm going to do my wrap up for the first half of May. So these are all of the books that I read up until the 16th of May, and I just thought I would do another mid-month wrap up because I've already read 6 books, 6 things, and I will probably end up reading around 6 or so again in the rest of the month. So I thought it would be a good idea to split the wrap up because I don't want to have another 20-minute wrap up because that was a pain in the ass. And I'm actually doing really well with my TBR this month. All of these books except for one were all on my TBR, and the one that wasn't on my TBR was just not on my TBR because I kind of forgot that I wanted to read it this month. So I'm doing super well and I'm very happy. And the first book I finished in May was Off to be the Wizard by Scott Meyer. This is a science fiction book in which the main character discovers that the whole reality is basically a computer program and he can kind of cheat his way through life. And it is a Kindle Emotion book, so that means that throughout there are animations. It was really a cool experience, but I have to say, overall, I found this book to be pretty boring. These animations were kind of the only thing that really kept me going. I definitely would have DNF'd this, but I wanted to go on for these animations, but then in the end, I don't feel like it was worth it. There were just not enough animations, and I knew that they wouldn't be on every page, but I was definitely expecting there to be like one animation for every chapter, and even that didn't happen. So I ended up being a little bit disappointed with this overall. I think there was not enough conflict and not enough struggle, because I knew the story would be about him time traveling and going back to the Middle Ages and trying to like pose as a wizard. And I thought that there would be a really interesting struggle in him like feeling completely uncomfortable in this environment and not understanding how to act. But then he ends up meeting other time travelers, which that's not really a spoiler because it does happen kind of early on in the book. So it's kind of all made really easy for him, and I feel like having a computer program that you can kind of cheat on as much as you want is already easy enough. So giving him the help of people around him kind of telling him how to act and everything just made for no conflict at all. I just wanted more of him kind of struggling to live in the Middle Ages. There was also trying to be like a romantic storyline, which was really fucking ridiculous. There was no build up to it at all. I gave Off to be the Wizard 2 out of 5 stars, would not recommend it. Even the Kindle Emotion I would not recommend, and I certainly won't be continuing this series. Then I read Marisai by Maria Tuchaninov. This is a German translation because the author is Finnish, and I wanted to read this because I was not sure if I would still enjoy this, and I ended up really enjoying this. I thought this was such a great, subtle kind of read. I really liked the world building, even though it's like everything about this is very subtle. The world building is very subtle and there's not much about it, and we spent the whole time on one island. But I just thought that everything was described in a way that I could really see things, and I could hear things, and I could smell things, and I could taste things. And that's something that I absolutely love. So I was really hooked, and I really enjoyed this much more than I was anticipating. I really just picked this up to be like, well, I just get it done with. And then I was really having a good time reading this. I just really thought the atmosphere was absolutely amazing, and I cannot really speak for the original writing style or for the English translation, but reading this in German was wonderful. I thought the writing style was so great, and it actually made me want to pick up more German books again, which I really did not think this would be able to do, but I just had lots of positive emotions while reading this. I do want to say like one huge trigger warning. That was one of the things that really pissed me off about this, because I did not think that this was necessary at all. There's not an explicit rape scene at all, so it doesn't have anything to do with the main character. It's not like right there on the page that this is happening, but it's still very clear. I thought that was like really fucking upsetting. I kind of tried to ignore it because I enjoyed everything else about this book so much. So I ended up still giving this 4 out of 5 stars. But that was definitely one of the things where I was like, why though. Like, I don't really think it made sense that it was there. This is definitely a thing that makes me not want to recommend it to people at all. I think if I had known about it before, I probably would not have picked it up. I'm still very glad I read it. As I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because a lot of it was so enjoyable. I just wish this scene had not been there, and I'm kind of trying to act like it wasn't there just for my own sake. Then I read Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. This is a YA contemporary about a girl who is like drawing this comic and she's getting really famous online. A new guy is coming to her school and she kind of finds out that he is writing fan fiction for her comic. They kind of really build up this friendship and eventually also a romance. It also deals with the main character's anxiety. I love this book so much. This is just as amazing as everybody is saying it is. I think if you have any kind of mental illness or you're struggling with mental health, you will be able to relate to a lot of Eliza's thoughts. Just the whole talk about like kind of being online a lot. Like, I feel like it's really interesting because she really tries to kind of hide her identity. On the one hand, we kind of get the perspective of someone who is really like famous online and who can really like make money off an online thing, but at the same time we still get the perspective of a very normal teenager just living an online life. I just love that so much and I was able to relate to so much of it. This is one of those books that I really wish I had as a teenager. I think it really would have helped me, so I'm glad that it exists for teenagers today, and I'm glad that I read it now because like even reflecting on some of the things, I just found it really wonderful. This is another one. I do want to say that there is like suicidal thoughts and like suicidal ideation in it. So like be very aware going into this, especially if you're currently in a bad place. I would absolutely not recommend reading this. But overall, I absolutely love this. This was just wonderful and a book that will stay with me for a really long time, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Over Raging Tides by Jennifer Elysion. This is an arc that I got through NetGalley, but this book already came out and I'm not gonna do a video review on it. I did write a full-length review on Goodreads, so you can check that out if you want some of my detailed thoughts. I thought this was a really fun and quick pirate story, but it was just nothing special and nothing that kept me like super engaged. I think the biggest issue was just that it was too short, and it is the first book in a series, but I just think it ends in a way that's way too open. I feel like there's a balance you have to have in your first book where you give the reader enough to be engaged, but then don't give enough so that they still want to read the sequel. And this kind of just missed the mark for me. Honestly, like now kind of thinking about it, like I really have to think hard about what actually happened and what was kind of the main conflict in it. This is not a bad book. I think if like me, you really enjoy pirate books and you just really enjoy this setting, you probably will still have fun reading this. Like I just crave for every single pirate story, especially if it's about lady pirates. That just makes me happy. But like I couldn't even tell you right now the things that I really enjoyed or the things that I didn't enjoy so much because I've just completely forgotten. So I ended up giving Over Raging Tides 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read a German translation of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee. I'm doing a monologue out of this play, so I also decided to read it, and I decided to read it in German because I'm also doing my monologue in German. But I thought this was a really wonderful play. This is like one of my favorite plays now. It's so interesting and there's so many layers to this. The layer on top is so much fun, and especially like the first act. And then it just gets like so devastating and you get angry and you get sad and there's just so many things packed into this. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars, and I think if you enjoy plays, I highly recommend this. I mean, obviously it's always best if you're able to see it, but for me, when I'm doing a monologue out of it, I first just want to make sure that I just read the play so that I don't have anybody in mind for the role that I'm playing. But like, if you have the opportunity to see it somewhere, I'd highly recommend to go and see it. And finally, in the first half of May, I read The Unbinding of Mary Read by Miriam McNamara. This is a YA historical fiction that I was looking forward to for a really long time, and I have to apologize to everybody that was kind of excited about this because I kept talking about it, because this book was not good at all. I'm just so mad because I was so excited about this and then it ended up being boring, but also like kind of high-key problematic. I went into this mostly because of the piratey stuff and the female romance in it. The piratey stuff was not really there, and I'm someone who doesn't really mind that all too much. I like the setting. I like being on a ship. Even the things that they do on land, I just like the whole piratey setting. A lot of the times they didn't even do anything that had to do with piratey things. Like, not even the setting felt very much like a pirate novel. Second thing, the female romance was just basically not there at all. We kind of stopped the novel at a point where it would have gotten really fucking interesting. There was just no chemistry. You could kind of feel a physical attraction between the characters, but there really was not a romance in my personal opinion. And I understand what the author was trying to do at the end, but it just didn't work because there was no chemistry build up. So these two things completely disappointed me. It was also like really fucking boring to read, but then also there were just so many problematic elements. I think it was just a little bit too intense on the homophobia and transphobia and the misogyny and the sexism and all of these kinds of things. And yes, it is historical fiction, but I think there was just a little bit too much. It is still historical fiction. You really don't have to be as intense. If I am reading a queer book, then I don't want to hear all of your shitty homophobic opinions. Even besides the transphobic elements, I felt like in general there was not enough discussion about like gender. The main character Mary just really struggled with gender. I don't know how someone who is genderqueer would feel about this. I just had a lot of iffy feelings while reading it, but I could also see that maybe some people will be able to relate to her because it's just a lot of questioning, but in the end I don't think that it was done well enough, and also the book is just too short to deal with all of these things. I ended up being incredibly disappointed. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars, I think just because it could have been worse. I feel like there were still a couple of things that I kind of enjoyed, and it wasn't like I hated it. Like basically I kind of was really into the romance, or like into the romantic feel, into the romance basically between Mary and a male character. I think that was actually a part that was really interesting, that I wanted to be explored a lot more, and that just had more chemistry and just there was more discussion around this. So I think that's kind of where my 2 stars are coming from. Other than that, I would highly not recommend it. I'm so sorry for everybody that was excited, but I would advise against actually picking this up. And this was everything that I read in the first half of May. I want to know your thoughts and opinions if you have read any of these books, and thank you so much for watching. I guess I'll see you soon. Bye!